So acid alkaline is pretty much how I got into healthier eating. One of the first books I read on healthy eating was a book called The pH Miracle by Dr. Robert Young. And I was so amazed at the depth of research he had done and how so much of this research is really old. You know, it's been around for over 100 years. And the amazing results he was getting using the pH approach to healing. And researching it further and then testing it on myself, I went on a high alkaline diet and still am on a very high alkaline diet. You know, just completely changed my life and how I felt and my energy levels and not getting flu anymore and all that kind of stuff. It is a fundamental pillar in health, making sure that your pH balance is correct. So tonight's talk is just going to be a quick overview on the topic. Obviously it's only an hour, I can't get into it in absolute detail. You guys can get the book and read further if you like.
What did you say the author's name was?
Dr. Robert Young. There's a lot to acid alkaline, but what I've also found is that often people will read books and they'll get quite stuck in the detail of it. And then they miss the bigger picture of it. So what I'm going to do is give you the bigger picture so that you have kind of a rule of thumb to work with so you can practically apply it immediately. And then if you choose to read deeper or further into it, by all means, go for it. It can be a bit of a confusing topic, especially when you hear things on the internet that says, this food is alkaline, and then another person says, no, this food's acidic, and then another person says, no, it's neutral. You're like, well, what is it? The short is, no one really knows. I mean, there are ballpark ideas, but depending on how the food is grown, when it's harvested, the nutrient density in the soil, food's going to be different. But there certainly are, ideas that we can look at around types of food, and that's what I'll get into tonight. So for me, one of the things to avoid is getting too stuck in the mind around the topic. Some people go, ooh, this food is, 6.3574 on the pH scale, so I cannot eat it. I'm only eating food like 7.75. You kind of miss the point. This is not a fundamentalist talk. This is just a talk on a principle that works, and take the principle, utilize it, but just don't get all bogged down in it. So, first slide, what is pH? It is a measure of acid and alkaline. You remember this from school, chemistry. 0 being highly acidic, 14 being alkaline, 7 being neutral, and then our blood, human blood, is 7.35 to 7.4. Slightly on the alkaline side. pH changes by a factor of 10. So if you look at something at 7 and then it drops to 6, 6 is 10 times more acidic than 7. If you drop to 5, 5 is 100 times more acidic, 4 is 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. This is why pool acid is so powerfully dangerous, because it can burn you because it's so low on the pH scale. Often people think it goes 7, 6, 5, 4 just as a linear scale, but it's a factor of 10. That's why when you consume foods or drinks that are at a pH of say 5, you need something 100 times more alkaline just to neutralize it. So our blood has to stay between 7.35 to 7.4. If we change it by as much as 1/10 of a point, we actually die. Luckily, this process is monitored and held in check by our subconscious system, so we don't have to think about it. And it's a very key system that the body will do whatever it can to maintain. We have a situation where our lifestyles, what we eat, and also what our body does naturally produces acidity in our system. Body processes produce acidic waste, things like lactic acid when you exercise. We don't produce alkaline wastes in our system. So our food has to actually neutralize the acidic waste that we produce as well as the acidic food we consume. Stress is acidifying on our system, and toxins are acidifying. On my cleansing and detox talk, I mentioned that there are thousands of chemicals that are being added to the food chain every year. In my talk 2 weeks ago, a recent study showed that babies are born with about 280 toxic chemicals in their blood from day one. That stuff is adding to our acidic burden. And then of course processed food and the Western diet is very acidic by nature. So all of this kind of stacks up to exacerbate the situation and make us even more acidic than we ever would have been in the past. And this is a major issue, especially in the last 40, 50 years. where processing food has increased, chemicals have started to be added, nutrients have started dropping in our food supply. It all kind of stacks together to cause the major issues we have today. And some people believe that acid alkaline, or being acidic, is a root cause of pretty much all diseases. So what does this all do? pH imbalance, over-acidification. What does acidity do? It causes inflammation, puffiness, water retention, stiffness, breeds harmful bacteria, parasites and mold in our tissues. You know, this is the stuff that people normally deal with on a daily basis, and it's just over-acidified symptoms. The body is very intelligent though. If you consume acidic foods and you have acidic toxins in you and you're stressed, it realizes that if your pH drops too far, you'll die. So it has to buffer that acidity from somewhere. Now, minerals are what the body uses. I mean, minerals are what makes something acidic or alkaline. If it's got a lot of calcium and magnesium, it's generally highly alkaline. If it's got a lot of phosphorus, it's generally acidic. So if you eat a big acidic meal and you've had no alkaline food in that meal, then your body has to neutralize that meal, otherwise your blood will shift too low and you'll die. So it has to pull alkaline minerals from somewhere, and it's not getting them from outside, so it has to go inside. So it'll do things like taking it out of your bones, taking it out of your teeth, taking it out of your stomach lining. This is where osteoporosis is such a problem today. It's long-term acidification, leaching minerals out of the bones. This is where bone density is such an issue today. People today think that taking calcium supplements is the solution to those issues. The solution is not to leach the calcium out of your bones in the first place. Prevention is way better than trying to cure it. Calcium supplements also happen to be some of the most toxic supplements out there. Most of them are just calcium carbonate, which is another word for chalk. Chalk calcifies your joints. So the calcium people are trying to take to get into their bones is not absorbable by the bones of the body, so it just silts up your tissues and your joints. So what do? Let's look at food and look at how food is acidic in nature or alkaline in nature. We start with animal food, and if you look at a lion catching prey, like a buck, a part of that buck is going to provide the acidic minerals and a part of it is going to provide the alkaline minerals. And generally the bones are the store of alkalinity. So obviously they have the calcium and all the other minerals. So that's where the lion would get the alkaline minerals. The muscle or the meat or the flesh is the store of acidic minerals. And then the organs are somewhere in the middle. It kind of tends toward the acidic side. If you look at a herbivore or plant food, you'll find that the leaves of plants are the storehouse of the alkaline minerals, magnesium, calcium, etc. The stems are then slightly lower down than that. And then you've got the seeds and the roots being the acidic part of the plant, with the fruits and the flowers being somewhere in the middle, depending on the type of fruit, the type of flower, when it was picked, the minerals in the soil. You know, some will tend to be more alkaline, some slightly more acidic. But they're somewhere in the middle. If we look at the standard Western diet, roots, seeds, and muscle. It's pretty much most of what the standard Western diet is made up of. I'll give you an example. If you look at, say, a burger and fries or chips, you're looking at the burger itself being meat or muscle. You're looking at the bun being a seed, wheat. It's also a highly refined version of wheat, which means it's even more acidic. Then you've got the tomato sauce. If you're lucky, there's a tomato in there. Otherwise, it's just flavorants, chemicals, preservatives, sugar, you know, all this kind of stuff, which is all acidic. Then you've got the chips, which are potato. That's acidic. Potato is a root. But then they deep fry it, which increases the acidity because it'll have 40% trans fats in it. Then you've got the soft drink that goes on the side, which is pure acid. There's no alkalinity. You know, the only thing that might give you some alkalinity is a little bit of lettuce, hydroponically grown, glow-in-the-dark lettuce. Almost completely deficient of all nutrition, you know, it can't really cope. So what they found is that when people eat a meal like that, the next time they urinate calcium. And they didn't understand where was the calcium coming from because it wasn't in the meal. So what they discovered is the calcium was coming from the body pulling the calcium out of the bones, neutralizing the acidic nature of the meal, and then not being able to hold on to that calcium, so it's flushed out. So people today are literally, with the food they're eating, peeing out their bones. It's quite hectic. That can be a motivating factor to change your diet. One of the things I wanted to mention on this diagram is you'll notice that this is much shorter than this line. So animal foods, the bones are far more alkalizing than leaves, because the bones are stored leaves. And you'll see that muscle is far more acidifying than roots and seeds. So I don't want you to compare the acidity of roots and seeds to muscle, because muscle will be far more acidifying, especially once it's cooked. Anything that's cooked is generally going to be more acidifying. Even stuff that was alkaline before tends towards acidity once it's cooked. Another reason why we enjoy raw foods rather than cooked foods. That's pretty much, if you remember that diagram, that gives you a good idea of what to eat if you want to stay alkaline. And for me, one of the key things to realize in this diagram is that if you're in a disease state already, you have some kind of issue, problem, you may want to cut out all acidifying foods and just stick to highly alkaline foods. That's what they do at clinics around the world to heal people of cancer, of diabetes, of heart disease. They put them on pure alkaline diets, no acidity whatsoever. It's usually juice from grass, from sprouts, loads of sprout salads, loads of greens, because they focus on the leaves. Because bones are kind of hard to eat. You realize that. I haven't really met anyone who's happy chewing through a raw bone yet. It's possible I could, but unlikely. And that's another point. If you are a carnivore, or think you are, then make sure you're neutralizing that meat with a bone. So you could, I suppose, use bone meal sprinkled over your steak.
Great.
Have you tried it? Okay, there you go. See? Yeah. But what I was getting to is that if you're generally healthy, or have been on a high alkaline diet for a while, then you can move into including some of the acidic foods, because what you're looking for long term is balance. Slightly towards the alkaline side, but balance nonetheless. You can eventually become too alkaline, that is possible, although highly unlikely in today's stressful living environment.
Your bone meal should actually then make the roots more alkaline.
You could, absolutely. You could put it in there too. Yeah.
So Pete, where do eggs sit on that scale?
So eggs would be somewhere between seeds and muscle. They're very acidifying. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that it's a no-no food. For me, any animal foods you choose to include, what's more important is the quality of the food. It is intrinsically acidifying. It's one of the reasons they often recommend people cut out animal foods on healing diets, because of their intrinsic acidic nature. But if you are generally healthy and do want to include some animal foods, it's more important the quality of the animal foods, certified organic, free range, wild. Definitely not farm stuff, because that is shocking today with the stuff they put in it. I'm not even going to go there. It makes me feel bleak.
Are all seeds acidic?
Pretty much. All seeds will be slightly acidic to moderately acidic. All nuts. Almond will be one of the more alkalizing of the nuts, especially once it's sprouted. Any seeds that are sprouted will be more alkaline. So sprouting seeds, or soaking them first, increases their alkalinity. Okay. Moving right along, there's a class of foods, I don't really call them foods, they're not even on here, because all this stuff is actually functional food. Now you can kind of eat all of this and live a healthy lifestyle, as long as, of course, it is high quality stuff. But there's a class of stuff that people eat that I call poisons of the palate. And these are the main offenders when it comes to the acidification of people's tissues long term. And they are accepted today as foods in the Western world. But for me, that doesn't mean that they're foods. I call them poisons because they actually are poisonous. Their effect on the human organism, on our bodies, on our tissues long term is toxic. It has been absolutely shown, scientifically, experientially, that the stuff is poisonous and toxic. If you want to know more, I have a little kind of ebook I put together called The Poisons of the Palate Manual, which has loads of info on the stuff, which I think we're going to give you a link to in an email following this free talk, and you can download that, or you can just search on Google. The information is all out there, hidden in plain sight, as most of the good information is. So this is the list. I'm really just going to mention them. I'm not going to get into them because it can be quite depressing and really it bores me. So the list is trans fats. So that's really cooked, dodgy fats. I mean, they find themselves in almost all processed foods. White, refined sugar. That can include any refined sugars taken from anything. White, refined flour. So again, altering natural foods into unnatural byproducts. Unnatural dairy. So I say unnatural dairy because there are a few places where you can actually get truly raw, unpasteurized, unhomogenized, happy cow milk. Not that I recommend milk really either. If you want to have dairy, I'd go more towards, some fermented dairies or cheeses or butters, that kind of thing. But for a lot of people, especially if you're needing to alkalize, dairy is just cut out. 99% of dairy available today is completely unnatural. On so many different levels, it's shocking. And you can Google that if you want to know more. It's quite atrocious what's happening in the dairy industry. Soya, especially processed soya foods like soy burgers and sausages and mince, that kind of stuff. If you're eating soya, make sure it's organic and that it's things like soy sauce, tempeh, tofu. Okay, those are okay? And in moderation. A lot of people see soya as kind of meat alternative and then they will eat way too much of it. And it has, various issues, but usually those issues are because people are eating so much of it. Soft drinks, I think that's a no-brainer. If you're taking acid and adding it to sugar and then adding artificial sweeteners and a whole bunch of other chemicals, that is clearly toxic. Artificial sweeteners are then the follow-up from that. These are not foods at all. They're non-nutritive in nature. Something's non-nutritive, don't bother eating it. It's not going to give you anything. They are completely toxic. There's so many amazing books and movies out there on all of these things, but especially on artificial sweeteners.
What's it creates formaldehyde?
Creates formaldehyde. I mean, that's pretty shocking.
Where does xylitol fall into that? Because I've heard...
Xylitol, as long as it's from a good source like birch bark, can be fine, is fine.
Isn't it? Because it's also processed, really.
Absolutely, so it's not a natural sweetener. So I tend to stay more on the natural side of things, because for me, nature doesn't make mistakes, people make mistakes. So I'll stick with raw honey and agave nectar, which is minimally processed, and dates, that kind of thing.
Because they market it, it's natural and it's on the bark of the tree.
Well, if it is actually from the bark of the tree, then it's pretty good.
Yeah, but it's not straight from.
Today they're using GM corn though, because it's cheaper. So.
Maple syrup?
Maple syrup, another long-term, or at least a sugar with a lot of history in Native American people. So you can include it, but in moderation, because it's very sweet. And especially if you have any disease symptoms or issues, you want to limit the sugars as much as possible, because they feed candida. Candida are the bad bacteria that colonize our system when we're eating highly acidic foods, when we've killed off our good bacteria through drinking water with lots of dodgy stuff in it, taking antibiotics, that kind of thing. Alcohol is in the list. I think that makes sense. Again, a big part of this is quantity, and for some people,
What about red wine?
Red wine.
Alcohol.
For me, a lot of the benefits needs to be weighed up to the risk with food. So yes, you can research red wine and get a lot of benefits, but you can also research it and get a lot of risks. So you weigh up the risks. The risk to reward factor is always there with anything you eat. That is the dual nature of food. And I suppose if you're having a very alkaline diet, and you're generally healthy, you exercise well, a little bit of the poisons every now and again certainly isn't going to kill you. Because people can kind of go off the deep end and say, like, the stuff will kill you just one serving, and I've heard people say that, and that's just not true. People have been eating this stuff for many, many years. It's a cumulative effect over decades. It's one of the reasons often they don't link the disease to the stuff, because it affects people so slowly over time, and often by the time the disease rears its head, then it's a little late, to do a quick turnaround. It's going to take a while to remineralize and rebalance the body. So that's why I recommend you start now. Start limiting or cutting out a lot of these things. And then coffee, highly acidic. Your body retains water when you consume coffee, so make sure you're having water decaffeinated, certified organic, and in moderation. That's the list. The talk isn't about going into detail about these things. I just put the list up there if you wanted to know what the key things are that cause acidity.
Decaffeinated coffee has got arsenic.
Yes, absolutely. Most decaf coffee
Either.
is no good because it's got chemicals and arsenic in it. But you can now get decaffeinated coffees that use a process through water filtration, which is much better.
Yeah, they say it's even worse because it's more processed.
I don't go near any of it. You know, coffee was something I was an addict to. I would drink 20 cups a day. And I reached a point where I realized this was not good because I could no longer hold a glass in one hand without shaking the contents all over the place. Like, my body was that demineralized.
That was before Vida, hey?
No, I used to go to Mug and Bean because they're, one cup and you drink
Oh,
so
no,
much
one you
as you want.
One coffee in a while won't kill you.
No, absolutely, it won't kill you.
I should like one a day.
Yeah. And that's where you got to use your own common sense, see what works for you. Because I actually have seen that there is the treat at play, which for some people, the positive mental, emotional effect they get from certain foods can almost outweigh the negative physical effects, obviously as long as it's consumed in moderation. That's not an excuse to now start hitting 10 cups of coffee a day or like caning a bottle of red wine every day. But obviously moderation.
Not having it can be worse.
Exactly, the stress.
You're having a lot of stress about not having it.
Yeah.
Deciding.
For sure. And stress is in itself highly acidic. And that's why the Rawlicious approach is just to add in good stuff. Be aware what is going to be causing damage long term. Be aware what is acidifying you long term. But just start adding in the good stuff so that you start feeling so much better, then you'll naturally want to give up the stuff. I don't believe you can actually just stop cold turkey and stay stopped for very long. A few people can, they've got enough energy, but most people, to allow your body to experience the toxic nature of the stuff by cleansing first, by getting your minerals back online, by getting your taste buds working again through mineralization, your body will naturally then tell you that it's a poison. And I recommend people do something like a 30-day challenge, where for 30 days you cut out 2 or 3 or 4 of these things completely, only for 30 days, and then at the end of the 30 days you actually add it back into your diet. And then you see how it feels in your system. And then you might get a bit of a shock. You might go, oh my gosh, I drank that cup of coffee and I couldn't sleep for 2 days. And you realize that actually before, your adrenals had been so shot that you weren't getting accurate feedback as to what it was doing to your body. And I've had experiences that with almost all of them. Yeah. And it's an easy one to experiment on yourself. Don't take anyone's word for it that something is a poison or that it's an amazing food. You actually have to experience it yourself to make it knowledge. Otherwise it's just information. And information is actually empty unless it's experienced by yourself. It's one of the issues I have with the whole natural foods kind of mission out there, is that often people can be quite evangelical, quite prescriptive, quite damning, quite hardline about it. And actually, it's a whole lot of stress. And it doesn't need to be there. If you just consciously remineralize, getting your body right, your body will tell you this stuff is junk and you don't want to have it. I mean, I had a friend of mine the other day tell me, oh, you know what, I used to love my red wine. He actually said he hates me, and then I said, why? He said, because he can't drink anymore, because he has one sip and he feels terrible. I was like, sorry about that. It's a bit of a warning. If you get into a highly alkaline diet, your body will become very sensitive to this stuff. And so you may start having negative reactions to them. They're actually natural reactions. Your body is naturally supposed to tell you when you've consumed a poison. But obviously after eating poisons for decades, that natural process goes completely to sleep. So people don't know anymore that it's a poison. Okay, so what I want to spend the last half of the talk on are greens, because greens are the key alkaline mineral or alkaline food that we can include to start reversing the damage of acidification, to start remineralizing our bodies. It's bone meal or greens? Greens, definitely. Go for the greens.
Bone meal.
You're going to go for bone meal. Okay, there you go. And then after this, we can do some questions and see what happens. So have you guys all tasted the green smoothie at the back? We gave you free tasters tonight.
I don't know how to sprout that bone meal.
That won't sprout, I'm afraid. The green smoothie tasters you can get at the end, and we obviously have green smoothies at the back too for you to drink.